Okay, class. So, welcome to another important lecture. And in today's class, we would be discussing about the third biological molecule, and by name, they go as fats. We can also call them as lipids, or we can call them as oils. As is the scenario with the sugars, that they have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So, these fats, they also have the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms in them. But the scenario is that the content of the carbon hydrogen, it would be more in the fats compared to the carbohydrate, but the amount of the oxygen in these fat, lipid, and oil comparatively they would be less as compared to the sugars that we have. Now, you must know is that overall these fats they are the complex ones, but we never call them as the polymers because for the polymers the scenario was that we need to have multiple repeating units that we were calling them as the monomers. But for the fats, we will have just the fatty acid chains. There will be total of three, and we will have one glycerol. And other than that, we will not have anything else. So that is why they are complex. They are not the polymers. So we know that these fats, how they are made up of, they are made up of fatty acid chains. Total, there would be three fatty acid chains. And then I need to link them up with the one glycerol molecule, and we would end up making fat, lipid, or oils out of it. Now, the scenario is that how come the formation of the fat, oil, or the lipid is going to take place. So there comes three fatty acid chains, and here comes one glycerol. When linked together, we would have the fats, and three water molecules would be eliminated out. In your exams, these fats they would be represented symbolically. If I were to be presenting the fatty acid chain, so I have to be representing it like this. If I am supposed to be representing the glycerol, so it would go like this. Now I need to be condensing them together. So this fatty acid chain, the second fatty acid chain, and the third fatty acid chain, I would link them up with the glycerol when it would be linked with the glycerol. So we would end up making the fats and three water molecules would be eliminated out. Other situation is that from where do we obtain the fats? So the fats they are obtained from the animals and the fats could be obtained from the plants. Like if I were to say cheese, butter and cream, they are the animal fats. If I were to say coconut oil, olive oil, so they are the plant fats. The thing is that what then we should be naming them. So any of the fat that you obtain from the animal, so they are termed as polysaturated fats. And any of the fat that you obtain from the plant sources, so they are the polyunsaturated fat. Both the polysaturated and unsaturated, they would have the same components, having the glycerol and the three fatty acid chains, but the slight difference would be that in the animal fat there would only be carbon to carbon single covalent bond in their fatty acid chains. But when we will look onto it, the fatty acid chains for the polyunsaturated fats, so there would be existence of carbon to carbon double covalent bonds. So that is why they are entitled as polyunsaturated fats. Now the scenario is that what functions do these fats they render in our body? So you will learn in your higher classes that these fats they make the major component of your cell surface membrane. Now the second scenario is that they are the source of energy, and by the source of energy, what we mean that if I have this mitochondria, so these fats when they would be oxidized, they would combine with the oxygen within the mitochondria, so they would release a lot of energy out of it. The next situation is that they act as a biological insulator. By the word biological insulator, what we mean is that there are the fats that are deposited under our skin. And when they would be deposited under our skin, so they would minimize or they would reduce the loss of heat. And we will see later in this course, in the chapter of the homeostasis, that for the skin that we humans have, so the top layer of our skin, so this is entitled as epidermis. Immediately below the epidermis, we have got this dermis. And in below the dermis, now we have these tissues, and these tissues they are the adipose tissues. And these adipose tissues they basically store fats in them, and that is why they would not allow the heat to escape out of us. So that is why we say that these fats they are the biological insulators. Like you see the bears that we have caught living in the very cold area, so they don't wear the jackets. What they have in them is thick layer of this fat. Now, if we talk about the human body, like for the male individuals, so when we reach the age of puberty. So at that age, we start developing some male secondary characteristics, like we grow the beards and the mustaches, and our penile organ they increase in size. So for that, we are in the need of the hormone, and the name of the hormone goes as a testosterone hormone. So this testosterone hormone would actually be developing the male secondary characteristics in us. So this again is made up of the fats. Now, at any point, you may have consumed the vitamins. The vitamins, they can be either water soluble or they can be fat soluble vitamins. Like if I take some vitamins, they would simply go into the water that I have in the blood and it would be distributed. Other than that, there are some of the vitamins and they require the fats in our body. Like they would go, they would dissolve in the fats, and from there our body can have a benefit. So these fats, they act as a medium where the fat soluble vitamin would be metabolized. And now here we have got some of the striking feature of these fats that they act as a source of the metabolic water. Now, what the source of the metabolic water is? Now, here we have a superstition in our mind that the camels they have a hump here, and in the hump they store the water. Now, this is entirely a wrong approach. The camels they don't have water getting stored in their hump, but rather than in their hump they have a deposition of the fats. And these fats, when they would be oxidized, by the respiration with this formula, like I would have the fats with me, and these fats, when they would be broken down by combining with the oxygen gas, so we would make the carbon dioxide gas, we would make the water out of it, we would release energy out of it. Now, since so much of the fat is getting oxidized within the camel hump, so a lot of water would be released out of it that the camels they can be living or surviving in the harsh conditions that we have in the desert. So this is all you must know in context of the fats. And in the next class, we would crack the nucleic acids.